What is going on, everybody? I am back today to do something very similar to a video that I did recently where I talked about overrated and underrated horror movie franchises, and I had a lot of fun doing that because it was a little bit different than stuff that I normally do. And we are coming up to the end of 2024, and I think it's really interesting to talk about movies in the span of a decade and things that have been released and kind of how the decade is shaping up. But I thought today what I would do is talk about from 2020 to 2024 now, what I think are some of the most underrated movies of the decade. Now, these aren't going to be necessarily my favorite movies or movies that have been the most critically acclaimed. These are going to be movies that I feel like people just haven't talked about a lot. And to make sure that this video wasn't 45 minutes long, I selected two films, so two from 2020 all the way to two from 2024. And so I'm going to tell you about those movies today, and I'm going to start in the 2020s and get to the modern day. And I'm really excited to hopefully turn you guys on to some movies that you haven't watched yet. So starting off is going to be the film The Kid Detective. This is a movie that I found out about because of Red Letter Media. They actually did a video recommending this movie. I had not heard anything about it whatsoever and just kind of watched it on a whim. And this movie is incredible. When I talk about like genre filmmaking and blending different genres together, this movie does an incredible job of that. It's not only a really fantastic drama, but it has incredible comedy in it as well. And it's very, very suspenseful. And I love that the movie keeps you guessing up until the very end. Adam Brody is phenomenal in this movie. One of my favorite performances of the decade. I feel like he doesn't get talked enough about in this film. If you don't know what this movie's about, it's about a guy who is kind of a washed up alcoholic who, when he was a young kid, he was an incredibly popular kid detective, and he solved all of these different mysteries in his town, and he even got recognized by the mayor. And one of the girls in his school that he was very close to was kidnapped, and she disappeared, and he could not solve her case, which sent him spiraling. And he's still trying to be a detective in the modern day, and he's approached by this young girl who says that her boyfriend is murdered and asks if he can help her solve the case. And it's such a fantastic plot line. It's such an easy movie to get invested in, and I just feel like this is a classic. This is a movie that should be regarded as a classic because it feels like something from a very different era. And if you have not seen this movie, I would highly, highly recommend that you go check it out. Next is Charlie Kaufman's I'm Thinking of Ending Things. I love Charlie Kaufman. He's one of my favorite directors. When I found out this movie was going to be going to directly on Netflix, I was relatively surprised, but it did not take away from just how absolutely incredible this movie is. As per Charlie Kaufman's typical, he nails it with this movie. It is hilarious, it's dramatic, it's thought-provoking, and overall, it's incredibly sad. The movie very much parallels these ideas of like questioning your self-worth and your identity, even leading to thoughts of suicide. And I think the way Charlie Kaufman handles it is really brilliant. I read this book shortly after I watched the movie, and I actually found the movie to be a lot more impactful than the book. I felt like the movie was much more suspenseful. I liked the way that it built up tension and anxiety and really left you questioning. And the book was really good, but I still really enjoy the movie a lot more. I know a lot of people with their critiques with this film are some of the dialogue because it gets very personal to like the interests of Charlie Kaufman and a lot of the art that he consumes. But even if you don't necessarily have familiarity with all of the art that Charlie Kaufman is referencing, I don't think that it makes the movie any less impactful. And the performances here are absolutely amazing, especially when you look at Jesse Plemons and Jesse Buckley. They both do an amazing job in this film. Toni Collette shows up in this movie, and she is absolutely amazing. And it's just a film that I have not stopped thinking about since I watched it. So now we're jumping into 2021, and I want to mention Mike Mills' film, Come On, Come On. Mike Mills is one of my favorite directors, and despite this film being put out by A24, I don't feel like it was as well recognized as it should have been. The performances in this are absolutely incredible. Joaquin Phoenix and Woody Norman especially are both amazing, and I feel like this relationship between Joaquin Phoenix his character and his nephew, there's something so naturalistic about it, and all of the ideas that the film puts into family and these unconventional relationships really resonated with me. I love the black and white cinematography. Mike Mills comes from a documentary background, and I feel like it translates really well into this movie, especially with Joaquin Phoenix making a documentary. And a lot of the people he interviewed for this film just were doing interviews, which makes the movie feel a lot more natural. And I just think there's a lot of subject matter here that can resonate with anyone that watches this movie. Next, I want to mention Paul Verhoeven's Benedetta from 2021. This is a movie that I feel like really gets looked over, and I think this is Paul Verhoeven's return to form. This has everything that I love about him as a director. The satire is brilliantly on the nose, but it's also very dramatic and thought-provoking. I think the way that it portrays the church and how religion can manipulate people's minds is really fascinating. There's a lot of sacrilege in the movie, which is no surprise to Paul Verhoeven, but it's handled in such a brilliant way. And I did not expect it to be as emotionally moving as it was, but it really did have a couple of moments that brought a tear to my eye. And I think that it's just this is what I want to see in a movie. I want movies to challenge me. I want to watch movies that provide subject matter that just leave you questioning everything when the movie is over. And that is 100% what Benedetta did to me when I watched it the first time. I think this movie is brilliant. The last time I checked, it was available on Hulu. And if you've never seen it before, this is one of the most slept on films from 2021. Entering 2022, I have to bring up Robert Eggers' The Northman, one of my favorite directors of all time. I think this movie does not get the recognition it deserves in comparison to The Lighthouse and The Witch. I feel like both of those movies are very highly praised. People recognize them for what they are, but this movie is also incredible. It does just as an amazing job paying attention to the period accuracy and looking at Norse mythology. What I like about it is it bleeds the supernatural into reality in a way that feels like it could accurately represent how the people in this time period felt. You're not necessarily witnessing something overtly supernatural, but the way that the supernatural is alluded to feels very realistic. I love the character relationships in this. I love the sheer brutality of the movie. I think the way that the drama is handled is really great, and each and every performer stands out. Obviously, Alexander Skarsgård is brilliant in this movie. Anya Taylor-Joy brings her 110% as usual. You also get these smaller performances like Ethan Hawke when he's in it is great. Bjork for her limited screen time is fantastic. Willem Dafoe is excellent as always. And I think it's a great action movie and also a great drama, and one that I just don't hear talked about in the same regards as other Robert Eggers films. Up next is The Quiet Girl. I have praised this movie so many times between both TikTok and YouTube, and I think this movie is absolutely brilliant. This is 100% what I want to see personally in a film. I love slice of life movies, and this movie is just one of the most empathetic and beautiful films that I've ever watched, about a young girl who her mother is about to give birth to another child. The family can't really handle taking care of all these kids. She's the quietest and the most on her own, and so they send her to go live with distant family. And it's about her finding acceptance in these family members that she never got to receive from her own family. And there's so many incredible relationship dynamics built in this movie. The cinematography is absolutely breathtaking. All of the performances are remarkable. And this was nominated for Best Foreign Film that year at the Academy Awards. But despite that, the movie didn't really get a ton of recognition. I didn't hear it talked about a lot. I didn't hear a whole bunch of people praising it, and that's really unfortunate because I think the movie 100% deserves the praise. And if you've never seen it before, this was also available on Hulu the last time I checked, and it's 100% worth your time watching. Up next, moving on to 2023, I want to start with the film The Taste of Things. This is a movie that completely and totally blew my mind. I love to cook. I went to school for hospitality management and a little bit of culinary when I went for my first college degree. And I love cooking and the passion behind cooking and how cooking is an art form. And this is a movie that showcases cooking as an art form in a very brilliant way. It's also a truly remarkable love story that will bring you to tears. The performances in this are exceptional. The cinematography is breathtaking. And it's a movie but you can just feel the love in each and every frame. There are so many scenes of just preparing meals and showing kind of how time consuming creating food can be and creating a great meal for someone else. And that's what I really loved about this movie. I'm also a huge sucker for period pieces, and this is a film that I have not stopped thinking about since I watched it the first time. My other film from 2023 is Sanctuary. This is a movie that I feel like not enough people talked about at all, and it has two incredibly brilliant performances from both Christopher Abbott and Margaret Qualley. It's a very small scale movie. It all takes place essentially in one hotel room, and there is drama, action, suspense, some allusion to horror throughout the film. And what I love is it keeps you guessing. I did not expect the direction that this movie was going to go in, and because the performers are so great, they constantly leave you questioning their motivations. And that, to me, makes an incredible movie. It's also very well shot. It's hard to keep some people's attention when you set an entire film in one room. And I think this movie does a great job varying things up enough for you to be able to really appreciate and enjoy these performances and all of the emotions that come with it. It is a brilliant film that I will constantly recommend to people. Up next, we're getting into the current year, and obviously the year is not over with yet, but the first film I want to talk about is Ghostlight, a movie that completely and totally wrecked me to my core, and I loved it so much. It is about a husband and wife and their young daughter, the relationship between the family. The husband is a construction worker, and he has some problems at work. He eventually leaves his job. There's something else going on with the family simultaneously. He's trying to cope with his grief, and he ends up stumbling upon this acting class that is doing its production of Hamlet, and he decides to become a part of it, even though it's not something that he would normally ever do. It is beautifully emotional. It is hilarious. It feels very realistic, and it is a movie that I cannot praise enough. This is a movie that I hope gets awards nominations. I don't necessarily know whether or not it will, but it 100% is deserving of those nominations, and it's a movie that I will continue to recommend, and I hope you'll check out if you haven't seen. And then my last one for this video, I Saw the TV Glow, still my favorite film of 2024, and a movie that I still don't think is talked about enough. Not only is this movie a beautiful allegory for the trans experience, it's also a really incredible story about people and their relationship with art, and how when you are lonely or trying to figure out your self-identity or any and all of those things, you sometimes pour yourself into media completely and totally, where that is your comfort. That is where you find your joy. And I think that it is done in such a brilliant way. Jane Schoenbrunn is such a phenomenal director. I can't wait to see what they do in the future. This movie has some of the most striking imagery that I've seen in a film all year long. It has one of the best soundtracks to a film I've seen, two of the best performances I've watched in a movie all year long. And if you have not seen this, I please beg you to give it the time of day, because it is completely and totally deserving of that. So what are some of the most underrated movies you have seen of the decade so far? Let me know in the comments. These are just some. Could have picked 6 to 7 in each year, but I chose to stick to 2. As always, if you can like the video and subscribe to the channel, helps me out a lot and lets me know the type of content you're looking for. I'm always putting out new material and look forward to get more out for you in the near future. And as always, everyone, thank you so much for watching, and have a great rest of your day.